Hi, I'm Reggie Harris, and I'm running for Cincinnati City Council in 2021. Hi, Kate. How are
Hello.
you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm well. Welcome to We Will, the Reggie for Cincinnati podcast, a podcast where we are exploring the ins and outs of running for office. And in this sort of section of the podcast, we're doing a behind the scenes. So we're talking about campaign staff. And for folks that don't know, Kate works on our communications team. I call Kate a super volunteer because Kate volunteers all of her time. But I would love for you to introduce yourself and your background and maybe even share about how we met for our listeners.
Absolutely. So my name is Kate Elliott, and sometimes I throw my middle name in and go by Kate Mock Elliott. I'm a writer, a creator, a theater artist, a musician, a mother, an avid fan of Cincinnati. My 9 to 5 job is doing marketing for a local construction company. I also volunteer on my community council, and as I mentioned, I dabble in theater and I do freelance writing. I met Reggie while participating in Cincinnati Chamber's Sea Change. I call it class COVID. We were the class that got shut down and did not get to do. So I met Reggie at the one in-person event that we had, and we hit it off talking about our experience in the arts, and we both have experience touring and how wild and ridiculous that experience can be. And so it was really fun. And then a month or two later, we found out that Reggie was going to have to leave the Sea Change class because he wanted to focus on his city council campaign. And I said, oh my gosh, that's exciting. And so I reached out to you to say, hey, you have to tell me more about how on earth you made this decision and what your process was, because I've always been interested in the idea of it and don't know anything about it. And that's how it began.
Yeah, no, I was so grateful for you to reach out. Because one, I really just believe in like passing on knowledge and sharing knowledge. And so I came to this moment by, asking a lot of questions of a lot of people. So I was very happy to have that moment. But I also, was struck by the meeting other people who are artists and work in fields that are outside of art, but really bring that artist mindset to the work, to how they show up. And so that was like really apparent to me when we met. But before we get really serious, I do want to do this with you because it's not many people that you can do this with. And let's do a quick exchange of wacky tour stories. Because I think the thing that many people may not realize is that when you are part of a performing troupe, I think touring sounds very glamorous.
Yes, it does.
And it can be, right? Depending upon the city and the theater and the budget, it can feel that way. But most of the time, it is very unglamorous, stressful, uncomfortable, and just downright kind of like cuckoo cuckoo. So, do you have a touring story that stands out to you as like kind of like, oh, this is nuts?
Think the thing that wraps it up in a bow is that we subtitled our show, so it was a children's theater production, a musical of the Berenstain Bears, which everybody loves the Berenstain Bears. But we started joking and calling it the Berenstain Bears, otherwise known as 5 Adults in a Prius. Because it was 7 people in the cast, and 2 people drove the van that had all the sets and the costumes, and then 5 adults drove 7-hour days in a Prius, because that's what the producer decided was the most cost-effective way of doing this production. And I was often, and granted I volunteered because I'm a kind person like that, but I was often the grown-up who was in the backseat with my feet on the hump. So
wow,
like sleeping perfectly upright. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, and I think that like you shared that story and that resonated so deeply with me. The craziest true story that I had was working for Ballet Austin. I was in my apprentice year, and the apprentices, we had no, actually, it wasn't even the apprentice year. This was my first year in the company, and we were doing Nutcracker.
Okay.
And so Ballet Austin had this really very interesting business model. It was like sort of post the economic downturn of 9/11. So we're talking 2003. And so there were all of these small cities in Texas that had gorgeous old theaters and that had over the decades had like arts funding in their city coffers that really went unused. And so these small cities had like enough money to bring a major ballet company in to do Nutcracker. And so I have performed in Orange, Texas, Beaumont, Texas, Vidor, Texas, Texarkana, Lufkin, Piedras Negras, Galveston, Brownsville. Like I've just been all over these small
Yeah.
towns in Texas, and this particular one was in Orange, Texas. And so we arrived in Orange, Texas at a small, like, dinky motel. And when we arrived, we were like, something smells funny. What's that smell? But okay, so you know, when we get in and like Kate said, it's like a 7-hour drive. You get there, you drop, go to the hotel, you go to the theater, you unpack, you stage, you set up everything, and then we would do 2 shows in 36 hours. So we did our first show. We came back, we were in the lobby, we were getting prepared to figure out something to eat for dinner, and an ambulance shows up, and they wheel a dead body out the front lobby. And we were like, oh, that was that smell. Oh, okay. So then we go to dinner. Right? We wake up, and what we were going to do is that we were checking out, going to the theater, dancing our show, striking from the theater, and then driving to the next city.
Yeah.
And so we wake up the next morning, and we are in the hotel lobby having our continental breakfast, which was these little plastic muffins and like orange juice. But the orange juice containers with the lucky. Maybe so a fresh fruit if you're lucky. If there's a fresh fruit, you're like, ooh. That's right. And so we're sitting at this table, and everyone is simultaneously sort of like, what happened last night? Also, you know, we're dancing on a foreign theater, and we have a show today. Kate, a second gurney with a body rolls through the lobby. Now the lobby is also the restaurant, which is also the like business center, which is so it's like all very small. And we were like, I just remember my director being like, okay, nope, wrap it up. like no, we're done. So yes, on tour to Orange, Texas, definitely stayed in a motel in which 2 people had died in the 24 hours that we. Well, so, I don't know when they died. I'm not
gonna lie. I was waiting for the twist to be that, like, it turns out that the hotel also doubled as the coroner's office. Like, I was ready for it.
You were ready for that.
Because that's how small towns work sometimes, you know?
Yeah, not far off from that.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you for indulging me, Kate.
Absolutely. Well, I think the thing that those experiences highlight is the seeing so many people think about the arts as giant organizations like Broadway or giant organizations or Broadway tours that come through something like the Aronoff. And it is so inspiring to go to these tiny rural towns that do still have these gorgeous auditoriums that were built in the 1900s, early 1900s, that they have maintained and that they are still bringing in outside people to be, because they are a smaller population. They don't have enough people to provide that kind of programming. year round. They have their own programming, but then they bring in from the outside, and they are nurturing a love of the arts.
Yes.
In that format, and it just is a great reminder that the arts is so much more than just Broadway and Hollywood and the occasional tour that comes through. We were a tour, but we weren't the only things that performed in the spaces. They had their own programming as well, and it's just really cool.
And they were actually, and these productions, Kate, to your point, were really vital to the community.
Yeah.
So the community, it was exciting for folks, and so appreciative, and it gives folks something to gather that is different from, and so in Texas, right, that TV show Friday Night Lights, which I thought was incredible, was filmed in Texas, and I think there are a lot of small southern towns that can really relate to the high school football team being sort of the social center of cities, which, I think is really awesome in some ways and also really not healthy in other ways.
It has its flaws.
It has, right. And so, but to come and to bring this production, we met with the local mayor and the sheriffs and the townspeople, and it gave folks an opportunity to create community and to cook and to have potlucks and to, engage. And so, we talk a lot about in our campaign this idea of expanding what people think about art and think about how art's training and what it means to be an artist, that what those skills bring. And one of the things that, you're sharing these like cookie tour stories, what it brings is the ability to transition on the fly. Mm-hmm. Right? Artists are ready.
Can I tell one more?
Yeah.
When you think about improvising, we had a scene where I was supposed to play a goose, and I had a special little goose hat, and something was wrong with the goose hat, so we took it to the hotel room that night to fix it. And of course, in the process of getting back to the theater, the hat did not end up in the costume box, and we don't notice this until we're a scene or two into the performance. And we're in this school auditorium, and we're like, what do we do? Because, how are they going to know that I'm not one of my bear characters? I need my goose hat.
Yeah.
I kid you not, I ran to the bathroom and fashioned a bow out of toilet paper just so that I had something different on my head. And I've never believed that I would learn how to craft with toilet paper, but it happened, and it was beautiful. It was a little odd. It surprised my castmates. They may have giggled a little, but we got through that show.
But you got through it, and you were able to do, and not only did you get through it, but you had to encounter that piece. So you had the initial shock. Mm-hmm. Then you had all of the thinking about what would happen. You problem solved it. You created a solution. And then you had to go out and throw all of that away. Mm-hmm. Remember your lines, be in character, and deliver. And I have come to recognize working in non-arts settings, in sort of corporate settings, and working with people who don't have that exposure or that training to be able to be flexible, and you see how something that to me is like, this is doable.
We can roll.
We can roll with this. We'll shut down work for a day.
I love that video you made about with your dance piece, and you talked about how you're used to working with so little. Some of the people I work with laugh at me because prior to working for this construction company, I was also doing marketing for nonprofits, and how I will painstakingly make sure that I'm only printing in black and white because you can't spend money on color printing. And that's just, I think there's we don't realize how valuable it is to learn how to work with less.
Yes.
People almost dismiss what can be learned from lack of resources instead of celebrating the inventiveness that comes out of it.
Yes. And then the exciting creativity that has when you go into a space and you're like, you've colored ink?
Right. And you'll let me just use it. Yes. Well, now we're really cooking.
Right. Right. It's like, we're really going to get stuff done.
But you start with this baseline of we will make it work. And then it's like, oh, wait, we can do even more.
We can do even more. Yeah. So, Kate, will you share with folks, so what is it that you do on the campaign?
Well, what do communications advising, I suppose would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am the proofreader. I brainstorm ideas, and I like to ask the questions. Have we thought about this? When we're choosing what we're conveying and what we're choosing to pursue on social media. So more the big picture thinker.
Absolutely, and Kate. It's just been so valuable to have you in this role because you bring. So first of all, you just bring your expertise, right? So for folks who do not know, Kate is a great writer. You are a wonderful, beautiful writer, and you can write in so many styles. So you just bring a skill set, but then you also do this thing where you're like, okay, as a writing, marketing, communications professional, here is what I see. Mm-hmm. As a resident living in a community, here's what I see. Yeah. As a creative. And so you're able to look through our communications through all of these lenses. And it brings I found that to be really valuable because I think one strong, clear communications, I think, is a sign of a well-run organization. But I also think that we are really relying heavily, more than I think before, on communications because of COVID, right? Because we're not able to, just gather in person. And so how we write things and when we share things and what we share on social media, I think carry an extra weight. So I really do appreciate that. So I asked Calvin this question, and it's interesting to hear from you. What is it like being a communications person and working with a candidate that hates Twitter?
I would say it's easier as a volunteer, 100%. Because if you loved Twitter, then we would be on Twitter all the time because so much happens on Twitter. And I love Twitter. I love read, especially for some reason, local politics on Twitter is just such a fun train wreck most of the time. I just am constantly just with my popcorn, Chris Redwood's live tweeting meetings and stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Who voted for what? Tell me. And but when you are trying to effectively communicate your vision for a complex topic, I stand with you, Reggie, that Twitter's not the place to do it. People aren't ready to listen to you on Twitter. They want to pick the one word that you chose wrong, and then they just drag you down over that one word. Or, it gets messy and it gets really elevated, I believe is the word. Yeah. Very quickly, which does a disservice to acknowledging that complex problems need complex solutions.
Yeah. It does a disservice, I think, to the discourse, and I'm very proud of our team in the way that we use social media and the way that we engage and share. Because yes, you can get stuck, and it's also its own little ecosystem, right? It's its own little world of communications that I think equally can be fun. And I mean, sometimes it's cool to post something on Twitter and get the validation, right, for to people see. But other times I'm just I can't give you my impressions of Ulysses in
it's.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is often that because so much does happen on Twitter that you can start participating just because you don't want to be left out. But then you risk being at a party that you didn't want to be at anyway because everybody's being negative and throwing mud at each other or whatever. And that's, I appreciate the way that you're trying very hard to have a positive campaign that is not.
Absolutely.
It's about your vision, and hopefully everybody is on board with your vision, and that's why they vote for you. They're not going to vote for you because you are dragging down somebody else.
And because we've had enough of that. We've had enough of the shenanigans. Mm-hmm. I do think that one of the things I want us to try to, and I say us to work on, it's me wanting to share, that there are some folks I think are looking for some pretty meaningful engagement and might ask some kind of it seems, when we look at the thread, non-leading kind of hey, what are your thoughts on X? And being able to respond to those things. But, I just, again, it can quickly turn quickly turn. And I'm so shocked, Kate. I have trolls. The campaign is trolls.
Oh, of course. They find you. Like, they will find you no matter what you do.
I was so shocked. There is a troll that just trash retweets everything that we do. And I was like, I was also a little bit flattered.
Right, exactly. You need it. Yeah,
right.
I just started messing around on TikTok, and for a while it was nothing but, oh, you're so funny. And then I got my first couple, and I was like, well, I guess that's a sign that I'm doing something right. If people want to try and tell me I'm doing it wrong, oh, well.
Yeah. Be like, I guess. Okay, this has been so much fun, and now we have come to the time in our podcast where we do our 1 minute rants. The name of our rants are called "What Bothers Me," and so essentially, I've borrowed this sort of idea from the Las Culturistas podcast, and so I'll go first. We'll time each other.
Okay.
Each get a minute. We'll do a 30-second, a 15-second, and a 5-second warning. So you can say it or you can show me your phone with the timer, whichever works.
I'll do that.
And then we'll share. So let me know when you're ready, and we'll start.
All right. So I'm timing you first.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ready? Go.
So what bothers me is lack of curiosity in people. What bothers me about that is just the world is just filled with, one can say maybe an infinite amount of knowledge. And when I encounter people who are not curious about the things that are in front of them, it is just so shocking. What bothers me is that lack of curiosity leads to lack of empathy, in my opinion, which then leads to the breakdown and deconstruction of communities and families and spaces because one is not curious about the people in front of them. What bothers me about the lack of curiosity is that it's also involved in a sense of self-absorption, right? To think that the world centers around you and that what you do is the most interesting. What bothers me about a lack of curiosity is that one is left not experiencing all of the difference and diversity that exists in the world. Don't have opportunity, and that bothers me. I can go on that rant forever.
I agree with you also, but my husband would especially. My husband loves science and if you see something, ask questions about it. And yeah.
Yes.
He is 100% on board.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm gonna pull up your timer. All right, Kate, your rant starts now.
What bothers me is that we do not take seriously enough the danger of sugar. And it bothers me because it is hidden in everything. My husband had to cut sugar 100% because he literally will get a migraine if he consumes sugar. And so that was really hard because spaghetti sauce, we can only buy a very specific size spaghetti sauce, things like that. So what bothers me is that cutting sugar from our lives was really difficult, but once it's done, you do okay. And the less sugar you eat, the less you need. And so it's a lifestyle change that has huge impact. And what bothers me is sending my kids to school where they are given a free lunch, and that's so important and so valuable to the families that need it. But knowing that a breakfast is a glazed breakfast bite. It's a donut. We're giving children a donut for breakfast and thinking that that is nutrition that's setting them up for success, when instead it's doing unhealthy habits that could be damaging for the rest of their life.
Okay, let's have a moment on that. That is you are so right about sugar, and it is in everything. Kate, I remember, Black people love seasoning salt. We particularly love a brand called Lowry's.
Yeah.
And I had to stop buying Lowry's because Lowry's has sugar. Mm-hmm. Sugar in the seasoning salt.
Yeah.
It's insane.
In bread, it's very hard to find sugar-free bread. Even whole wheat bread.
Yeah. Yes.
So we've been really struggling knowing that our kids are going to school, and we're not going to say don't eat the breakfast that they offer you at school. Your friends are eating it. It looks delicious, but so we've gotten a little bit more restrictive at home, being no, honey, we're not going to have a treat after lunch because you had a donut for breakfast. Like, it's got to be a balance here.
Right.
The weekend we loosen up, but it's just, and
Yeah.
so yes, that's just been eye-opening to me. And I don't want to throw schools through the mud. I know that there are budget concerns, and I think maybe that's what really bothers me is how cheap sugar is. And that's one of the things that fuels this problem, is that I know the schools are working on a budget and it is better fed, but it would be really nice if it was economical to be feeding children food that's actually going to set them up for success.
Right. Like you'd be like, I want to give my child, a piece of, like broccoli, and I don't want the broccoli to be sprinkled in sugar, right? Like I just feel like,
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, Kate, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your help on the campaign. You are just a phenomenal member of the team, and I just can't wait to do more.
It's been an honor trying to get people to understand the cool vision that you have for the city. So.
I appreciate it. All right, Kate, we'll talk soon.
Take care.